Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Stat Me Up for Anfield Index. What a difference a few days can make in football, ladies and gents. After the disaster class showing against Forest, it's ultimate joy in Milan, isn't it? In the San Siro as a Champions League victory is the icing on the cake for Arne Slot's birthday. So here to talk through Milan, Forest, and even look ahead to the stats for Bournemouth upcoming this Saturday is the renowned and the respected, the favourite Hungarian hipster, Ben Boksak. Ben, how are we? It's quite warm where I am, I'm not going to lie, so it looks quite nice where you are too.
It is. It is really nice in South Wales. So, yeah, I'm enjoying the day, especially after a fantastic victory. We're recording this on sort of Wednesday afternoon after Tuesday night's brilliant results. So, yeah, I can't complain at the moment.
Definitely. Well, to be fair, we would be complaining if it was the same result as Saturday, but we've got loads of positives for this. I mean, Ben, I saw some of like the surface level stuff that people were putting out, the stats, but even just in terms of the performance as well, it is important to say this was a good performance, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Liverpool played enjoyable football. I thought the changes Slot made were good. He didn't overwhelm the team with changes, but the players that he did bring in, particularly Cody Gakpo, did well. And obviously Kostas Tsimikas, he did get the assist as well. So both of those changes worked out well. I think overall Liverpool, apart from that quite like disappointing opening few minutes,
Mm.
Liverpool control the game. I mean, this is not a great Milan side.
Nah.
It's still the San Siro, and you know it's still AC Milan. So regardless of the situation at the club, the ticket protests that were happening, so
Yeah,
it wasn't a
weird.
full stadium. But regardless of all that, it's still AC Milan and it's still the San Siro, and Liverpool played very well.
Yeah, no two ways about it. What I also enjoyed is, like you say, the back four all getting a goal contribution as well. Kostas Tsimikas, because I've got to call him out. I don't think I've ever seen a performance where a left back just runs out at fault for the first goal, then crosses a ball so brilliantly. And do you remember that shot with his right foot, Ben, that I think possibly went out for a throw, like a competition winner? I just laughed my head off at that one. So,
He
yeah,
missed a few chances, to be
I
fair. I
know.
think Szoboszlai set him up. There was one he could have squared to Salah as well. A few chances that could have made this scoreline even bigger than it was.
It's just crazy. We have two left backs who can cross a great ball, but are up there with the worst shooters in football history. But there you go. It is what it is. It was enjoyable overall, ladies and gents. I mean, Ben, let's get into players and get into stats here. Ryan Gravenberch, or Baby Hullet, as we'll start christening him at the moment, because all this lot talks about Dutchmen in this arena. I mean, we're saying this quite a bit now. There's no coincidence to this. He was good last night. I mean, he was the official man of the match, wasn't he, for UEFA? What do the stats say about his performance last night?
Yeah, I mean, he deserved that man of the match. I don't know if anyone was listening on Amazon Prime, but Alan Shearer gave it to Dominic Szoboszlai, I think. And as a Hungarian, even I was thinking, are you sure? Like, Gravenberch was by far the standout player, and the stats sort of reflect that as well. He made the most interceptions in the game, six interceptions, which is really high. I think the last time a Liverpool player did that was Trent Alexander-Arnold in 2018 against Manchester
Wow.
City. So yeah, it's been a while since a Liverpool player has done that. He also made the most recoveries. Um, just overall, sort of never gave the ball away. Uh, really good in terms of ball retention. I think he had an 89% pass success rate, so he misplaced a few passes, but I think it was only four in general, which is not a lot. And yeah, won all his tackles as well, 100% tackle success rate. So a really good performance from him. And I think it's becoming a bit boring now to say he's made that number six position his own. He's been brilliant. He's been sublime. And I hope this continues because that 35 million Liverpool spent on him, if he continues like that, is going to be an absolute bargain if you think about what these type of number sixes are going for in the market and how long Liverpool have sort of struggled to find a number six. Turns out they already had one for the past sort of 13, 14 months.
He was really good. It's like those long sort of telescopic legs, just nick it, block it. They just come from nowhere. And there was that bit last night where even as Milan broke late on, he cut out the cross, wasn't he, after Leao had burned Konate. And it was great. You could see Konate and Van Dijk straight over to him with a bit of a roar. Like they recognised how well he's doing at the same time. And I mean, we mentioned one of them there, both scored, but I think it's worth focusing on Konate because he has another one that's been great since the start of the season, a goal, like which feels like it's ages since we've spoken about a Konate goal. But just last night alone, what did the stats say about Konate's performance?
I think it's just, again, superb. He made the joint most recoveries alongside Gravenberch. Um, really strong in the air, 5 clearances,
Wow.
3 out of 4 aerial duels won. Again, 100% tackle success rate, 1 out of 1. Just completely dominant. That's what the stats would say. As dominant as his leap was for that for his first goal, or for Liverpool's first goal rather. I think Dominic Szoboszlai in the Instagram comments compared it today to Michael Jordan, and I have to say it was kind of NBA like in the way he leaped above everyone else.
Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. I suppose you don't want to go negative. The only thing that worries me is Ben. We know Konate's injury record. Like, let's be honest, everyone knows Konate's injury record. He's starting every game. We're in our first 3 games in a week period, aren't we? Because we go Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday to finish off. I suppose the concern a lot of people had, because I want to be honest, I was thinking like, I suspect this could be the one he drops out to make sure he's ready for Bournemouth. I'm wondering now if Bournemouth's the one that drops out. However, I'm also now wondering, Ben, Arne Slot just doesn't seem to particularly like rotation either. So it could even be the 3 in a week. I mean, has he ever managed 3 games in a week ever for Liverpool, Konate?
It was tough to find, but to be fair, he has in the past, and especially on now he's played international duty as well, so he's playing a lot of minutes. But at the moment, it seems like he is holding up, and last season was his most minutes by far. So it seems like maybe the injury problems are sort of he's overcoming those injury problems. He's entering the prime of his career, and it seems like potentially his injury problems are getting less and less as he is playing more minutes. So it might be that actually he'll be fine. But we'll have to wait and see because there is a Jarrell Kwanzaa waiting on the wings who hasn't featured since that Ipswich game, since
Yeah.
those first 45 minutes of the season. And I think it would be a terrible shame if he just sat on the bench for the rest of the season because he's a great talent. Didn't have the best of games against Ipswich, but he had a fantastic preseason. And I think people are forgetting that. Like Liverpool played Arsenal, Man United in those games. And in both of those games, Kwanzaa was brilliant.
Yeah.
So I think people are kind of forgetting that side of things as well. We're going to get to Slot's rotation. We're going to talk a little bit about it. But I do think I would like to see maybe him switch things up every now and again and give Konate a rest, even though it seems like actually the injury problems, the muscle problems are becoming less frequent. And he played the most minutes in his career last season for club and country, and I think he's probably on course to do that this season as well, barring any injury problems.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see. Let's hope he breaks the record again, and he's been brilliant form. But yeah, let's hope. Kind of just worried about how he's managed. We won't have long to find out with Bournemouth on Saturday. And another player, your countryman, Szoboszlai, I mean, he gets the third, doesn't he, as well? I mean, the one thing about Szoboszlai you can't doubt is he ran all night. His pressing was outstanding, Ben. I mean, match-wise, what do the stats say for him and his performance overall?
I think the thing that I wanted to sort of highlight is obviously Arne Slot before the game uh, praised him for exactly his pressing,
Mm.
um, and then added, which I think everyone agrees with in the entire world. I think even the Hungarian national team manager, he made this point last year when Szoboszlai was first getting started at Liverpool and wasn't scoring as many goals, that he needs to be scoring goals. And I think the damning sort of statistic is he got 3 shots on target in this game. That was the first time since March uh,
Wow.
that he got 3 shots on target in a game for Liverpool. And obviously, in March, he got 2 goals against Sparta Prague in those games.
Mm.
Again, he got a goal in this game. So it seems to be if you get him 3 shots on target, one
Yeah.
out of three will go in goal. But he's just not been able to do that a lot this, not just this season, but even last season.
Mm.
If we're looking at sort of his Forest and United statistics, he managed 3 shots altogether in those 2 games, and not all of them were on target either. So yeah, I think that's something that he needs to work on to be able to get into those scoring positions more. I think sometimes he isn't necessarily helped by Mohamed Salah, for example, who, I often see Szoboszlai is in a good position and Salah will instead try to take on a player. Not just Szoboszlai, by the way. I think Salah does that a few times, um, especially in the Forest and in this Milan game. But you can't fault him. I mean, he's Mohamed Salah. Like 9 times out of
Yeah.
10, he will score. So it's not a criticism to Salah because I think he is the star player. You want him to take those risks and not necessarily play the easy passes all the time.
Yeah.
But I do think like there are situations when he is in those areas, he's just not given the opportunity or not given the pass. Uh, but I think if he can continue what he's been doing and get shots on target, find those scoring situations, then
Mm.
we can have more goals, more situations like this.
Fingers crossed. Yeah. It felt like almost in a way there was for him and quite a few others because there really, as you said, wasn't much rotation at all. It was good for them to get Forest out of the system because there was a lot who were, and it's not just the Boslais were saying this, people, there was a lot who were pretty woeful, as we know, at that time as well. I suppose bringing it back to the positive in Milan, we talked there about, I mean, there were some good ones, Gravenberch, Konate, Szoboszlai. Any other kind of standouts for you or stats worth calling out from last night at all?
I do think McAllister went kind of under the radar.
Yeah.
Like I thought he was really good, and people forget this was his Champions League debut. So I was looking at FootMob. According to FootMob, he made the most tackles and won the most tackles, 2 out of 2 in the game. He also made the most passes into the final third with 11. 3 key passes in the game as well,
Nice.
and 3 out of 4 long balls completed. So, like his passing numbers were really good.
Mm.
He was getting passes into the final third, sort of those forward passes that you want him to make. And on top of that, he was getting those key passes into the box and creating chances as well. So I was really impressed by his performance, and I thought it's kind of like the unsung hero of the match because Szoboszlai scored and Gravenberch was just so good. I feel like people almost didn't notice how good McAllister was alongside him.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Because we've talked about this and Slots mentioned it so often. And we use this phrase. It's all about duels, isn't it? And individual battles. He's talked about that before. Last night, I mean, I had a look at the stats as well. We actually won less than 70%, or sorry, 50% of the ground duels and less than 50% of the aerial duels, which sounds crazy considering the behemoths and the fact we scored 2 goals from set pieces as well. But hey ho, I suppose that's just the way it plays out. We are always going to take a 3-1 victory in the San Siro. Now, it's a new group, it's a new format, it's a new everything a little bit in the Champions League, Ben. I know it used to be the older where it was in a group of four, etc. When we usually win the first group game, how does it go for us from there?
Yeah, so the last time we won our first group game was against AC Milan, and we ended up going into the final against
Yeah,
Real Madrid in 2022. It was probably the most forgettable Champions League final
yeah,
of I think my lifetime watching Liverpool. Uh, Even the Kiev one, at least we had some sort of entertainment with the Salah injury, and I don't know whatever happened to Loris Karius in that game, but there was some sort of, I think that was more disappointing than 2022 defeat, because it just felt like we actually dominated that game and we
yeah.
created so many chances, and it felt like a big missed opportunity. Um, but yeah, the previous time before that, we again got knocked out by Real Madrid, that time in the quarterfinals during COVID. Before that, beat PSG and went on to win it. And that was all our opening first group stage victories under Jurgen Klopp. So two finals, one quarter final, twice going out or being eliminated or losing in the final to Real Madrid, and one time actually winning it. So that's not a bad track record
No.
under Jurgen Klopp. It was a bit different. I sort of went into like Rodgers's and Benitez's record. So the last time before Klopp, we were in the Champions League. Rodgers beat Ludogorets, but went out in the group stages. And then Benitez in his final season, he beat Debrecen in our first group stage game, and then again went out in the group stages. So before that, it was a bit of a mixed bag, but under Slot, where the tendency has been win our first game, and we tend to do pretty well.
Wow. Yeah. Well, let's hope. Tell you what, a final. Well, Real Madrid, that's a name that comes up quite a bit, and we will see them later in this competition. But yeah, ladies and gents, so much to like from last night's performance. Things we don't like, Ben, we'll keep this brief because we'll not bring the mood down. But I do think there's a few things it's worth just alluding to as well. I mean, Saturday was a disaster pretty much across the board. It felt like I don't think there's anyone who almost you felt like giving pass mark to at best for a few. I mean, from Saturday, that defeat to Forest, what were the worst stats? Was there anything that you thought sort of summed it up, or like this maybe told the story, or any bad stats, as it were, from Saturday's defeat?
Yeah, I think the fact that Liverpool created just one big chance at Anfield in the whole 90 minutes
Yeah.
against, let's be honest, this is a team that at best is going to finish mid-table. So you're at home against this kind of opposition, and you've created one big chance. That's, I think, really disappointing. I know we mentioned in the previous podcast, Forest had really impressive defensive numbers.
Yeah.
Only City up until that point had conceded fewer expected goals against them. But
Yeah.
regardless, I still think one big chance is very disappointing. And in contrast to that, also allowing Forest to have two big chances again is quite disappointing. So that's what I would sort of highlight from that game.
Yeah. Especially we talked before about how good the XG was, wasn't it? And even the conceded XG. So yeah, I mean, we could go on what was wrong about Saturday for the next week or so, but we won't. I suppose the only other point I wanted to come to, and it kind of ties into last night a bit, because we actually had some rotation, didn't we, last night? Cody Gakpo actually came in, Kostas Tsimikas came in. But what was going back to Saturday, that was 4 games in a row with the same lineup. Now, you're probably going to shoot me down completely on this because I just genuinely can't remember a manager or a head coach in all my time making so little changes. So I suppose stats wise, how many changes do Liverpool managers tend to make in their first 4 games or so of their reign?
So the first 4 games, I mean, Kwanzaa started the first one, and then Konate started the next three. So technically that was just one change made
Yeah.
by Slot. Um, it to his starting 11, so he used 12 players in his first four Premier League games.
Wow.
I looked at Klopp in his first four Premier League games. He used 14, so he made
Okay.
3 changes. Rodgers 16. He was really trying to figure out his squad. I think that's quite a lot of changes.
Yeah.
Benitez was 14 and Julia was 14 in their first four Premier League games. So on average, when a new Liverpool manager takes over, you tend to see 14 players being used in the starting 11 for the first four games. Slot's decision to use 12 is quite unprecedented. That's obviously never has been done by a Liverpool manager in the 21st century. So yeah, it's I think it kind of he's alluded to it in a lot of press conferences as well now, speaking about his sort of idea and how in Feyenoord he didn't really rotate a lot. That seems to be his preference. He's got his starting 11. He believes that's the strongest team, and that's who he's going to put out week in, week out. It's an interesting strategy. I think he'll definitely have to adjust it a little bit because the Premier League is not like the Eredivisie, and on top of that, the new Champions League structure as well. Will just increase the volume of games coming up for Liverpool. I'll be interested to see how seriously he takes the cup games as well. We've got cup games coming up. Based on his rotation, I don't think we're going to go far in the League Cup or the FA Cup this season. I'm not really expecting him to take those seriously if he wants to start his strongest 11 in the Premier League and Champions League games. That means probably we're going to see a very reserve team in the cup games anyway, the domestic cup games. But yeah, it's definitely unprecedented from a new Liverpool manager to use so few of his players in the starting lineups in his opening four matches.
Yeah, breaking records, breaking stats already. And I suppose, I mean, moving on to this Saturday, no one's really sure, but it wouldn't even surprise us too much if there's no changes or maybe just one or two, like Robbo coming back in. Possibly this will be hard to gauge. Now, Bournemouth, it's important to say this, Ben, because people are going to say Bournemouth are going to be exactly the same as Forest. They're going to come, but they are a different team and they do play a different style of football. So I've got a few bits I want to ask you around this. What's our record like at home against Bournemouth to start with?
So in the last 5 games at Anfield against Bournemouth, we've scored 20 goals.
Wow.
It does come with the caveat that there was that 9-0 victory on the Cup, and we just conceded 2 goals against them. In the Premier League, we've played 8 matches against Bournemouth, won 7 of those at Anfield, and just 1 draw in that time. So yeah, really good record. Bournemouth have never won at Anfield in their entire history. They've only won 2 games from 22 against Liverpool and lost 17 matches from 22. So historically, really good record, especially at Anfield. Never lost. But then again, we said the same about Forest last week, and we saw what happened. So you can't take history and you can't take the statistics for granted. I think it's going to be a different game than even last season when we faced Bournemouth, because we faced them at Anfield quite early on in the campaign.
Yeah.
And then we faced them away in the League Cup, and obviously they're evolving as a team, and I think they're getting better and better. And I think they're going to be a completely different challenge to what we're used to.
Yeah, I think that's fair because people will be nervous, and we don't know the people that whether they're set up with a low block, because people now have visions of Forest is the blueprint, don't they, Ben? Pack the middle type of thing, see how far. I suppose you're hoping Liverpool can't play as bad an individuals as they did last weekend. I did want to ask about Bournemouth because you're right. It's that bit you said where they are a different team from Forest. And Iraola is a very different manager from Nuno. There's no two ways about that in the way they set up. What do the stats kind of say around the way Bournemouth set up? Because actually, when you watch them on the eye test, I would say they don't play long balls like Forest do typically. They don't rely on big men. It's a different type of football. So, what do the stats say around kind of their pressing, the way they operate, particularly?
Yeah, so I couldn't find exact pressing statistics, but I can tell you that they have made the most recoveries in the Premier League so far this season.
Wow.
So that seems to me, they are a team who will sort of press high from the eye test and sort of challenge the opposition, and they're quite successful at making those ball recoveries and winning balls high up the pitch. But then again, they are a team who also don't really like to have as many touches on the ball. Or
Okay.
so you mentioned Forest, they're 14th for overall touches in the league. Bournemouth are ranked 13th. So that would
Okay.
suggest, in terms of allowing Liverpool to have possession, things could potentially be very similar in this match. And you mentioned again that they don't go long. Well, only Everton have attempted more long passes than Bournemouth
Wow.
this season. So
Wow.
stats would suggest actually this could be quite a similar game, although I do think they will press differently. And
Yeah.
that press, if Liverpool can play out from that press, then that could open up spaces for Liverpool. I'm not expecting Bournemouth to completely sit back, even though like they are ranked 13 for touches overall. I do think they will have a bit of a higher line in comparison to what Forest sort of put out against us. Again, and they still create chances as well, so they are going to be a threat going forward. They ranked third for shots overall in the league, behind only Man City and Brighton.
Wow.
So yeah, I don't think it's going to be as difficult of a test in terms of breaking them down as
Yeah.
Forest, but I do think potentially they could cause more problems to us in going forward and those kind of situations. I do think this is a game for Salah because being Hungarian and knowing Milos Kerkez, he is a good player with a lot of potential, but his positional awareness at times makes him a bit of a vulnerability. And I think if Salah can expose that, and if Salah can sort of find the spaces and catch him out of possession, then I think this is a game where, if you're a fantasy football fan, I would be captaining him for this one. Although now next week we're probably going to get loads of comments saying, well, I captained Salah and he didn't score or get an assist because I just jinxed him. But I do think that matchup there is going to be an interesting one. And on the right hand side in particular, I think Liverpool can cause problems to Bournemouth.
Will be interesting, yeah. Well, will Salah do his Nunez impression that he was doing in the San Siro last night, wasn't he? And rattling the woodwork regularly, we will have to see. I think everyone's the same. It's felt like we got Forest out the system, ladies and gents, didn't we? It was a great win in the San Siro, but it is now a completely different test on Saturday at 3:00. And to be honest, we hope for 3 points. You expect 3 points. It's okay to say that at the same time, but it might not, in a weird way, be as easy as it was for parts in Milan. We will have to see. So all it really leaves me to say is, Ben, for the time, the insights, for the stats, much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you. Really enjoyed it. And I'm really glad we got to speak about victory, because after the weekend, I was sort of wrapping my head around how we're going to put a positive spin in that Forest result. But it was so nice to see Liverpool playing like we have been accustomed to seeing them play under Arne Slot in that Milan game. And let's hope it continues.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's hope it continues this weekend. And then next week, ladies and gents, we'll be talking about that, and we'll even be talking towards the Carabao Cup, where we'll see if Arne Slot does actually rotate players. That will be interesting to see. But for another Media Matters, for Anfield Index, enjoy the rest of your day.